start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, I want to thank you for all these teens that are with us this evening. It says a lot about their character and their walk with you to be able to brave the weather and even forsake the Jet game to be here. I give you glory, Lord, in being present in our lives. I ask you to just be with us this evening. Open our minds, open our hearts. Help us just to be at peace with you and just be totally available to hear the truth. We give you, Lord, everything in our lives, and most our will. Take our lives, Lord, and take our will. Help us to die to ourselves so we can just fill our lives and our will with you and your will for us in our life. We give you glory, Lord, in all things. Amen.
Amen.
So, my name is Ryan Young. I come from a pretty large family. Rob's my brother, and they asked me to come in to be the ringer, so here we are. Tonight, we have a pretty interesting topic, which is issues about life. The reason I'm here this week is because Friday, it will be the anniversary where Roe v. Wade was legalized in our country. And so we talk about life issues this week to remember that reality. When we talk about abortion, it's very similar to other societal discussions we're already having. When you think about the Catholic Church X, and then society wants Y, there's something that connects all that, and that has to do with compassion and misdirected compassion. Think about it. Society says, our older people are getting ill. We have compassion for them. Therefore, we should enable euthanasia, right? It's compassion for those who are suffering. We have compassion for those that are your age to say, you know, maybe we should wait until we're married, but we have compassion that we're weak, and we kind of said, well, we're not going to talk about chastity because we have compassion for you where you are in your walk right now, right? We have compassion for those who are handicapped, right? And we say, well, then, you know, embryonic stem cell research will be okay because we have compassion for those who are handicapped, right? And abortion is no different. We have compassion for a woman who gets pregnant that's unplanned. We have compassion for her. Therefore, we're going to allow abortion, right? But if you look at all of this, stage after stage, right, the church has stood up and said, no, we shouldn't allow that. And no, hold on a second, we got to stop and think, right? Because what we have here is we all have this good emotion of compassion, but we're using it in very misconstrued ways. Let me just ask you a very base moral question. If we can cure cancer tomorrow, but we'd have to kill her, okay? The world would be cured of cancer tomorrow, but all we have to do is kill her. Is it moral to proceed? It's never moral to proceed, right? Everyone's excited. There's a real base moral principle that's called the ends does not justify the means, okay? So the end of curing cancer, even though we all want to cure cancer, doesn't justify any act to get to that end, right? You can't just kill her so we can cure cancer, right? Well, in all of these misdirected compassion issues, they all have that in common. We want to relieve the suffering of that old person, so we're going to go and inject him with something and kill him, right? We have compassion for people your age, so we're not going to talk about extramarital sex, and we are going to talk about birth control, right? We have compassion for someone who's has same-sex attraction, so we're not going to talk about perhaps unhealthy spiritual living, right? We're going to talk about have compassion for the handicapped person. So we're not going to talk about, the route in which we're going to do to help cure that handicap, right? So again, great end, poor action to get there, okay? And abortion's in that realm. Does everyone understand what I just said? Because it brings the principles kind of to be. So what is the principles here is, what society will tell you as a Catholic is, you're not compassionate, right? How can you look at this poor young lady or even older woman and say, she has this unplanned pregnancy, how can you not be compassionate to her, right, as a Catholic? And that is the biggest struggle Catholics generally have with this issue. Is how do I answer that question? What am I going to say right now, right? And so we have to understand what it is that we're even talking about, and that brings us into life. Talk about life. So when you look at the abortion issue, okay, you look at what is a person. That's really the defining argument about the entire topic, okay? Because what the pro-choice argument is if the child is in utero, it's therefore not a person, okay? And because it's not a person, we could do whatever we want to it, however we want to do it, whenever we want to do it, because until it passes through the invisible force field of the birth canal, it is not a person, right? And it doesn't matter if that unborn baby is this big, or this big, or this big. It's still not a person, as long as every part has to be out of the system before we call it a person, and now we defend it with our laws, right? That's what abortion's about. So we talk about, well, what's going on in there, right? I mean, if you ask, I have 5 children, okay? If you ask my 3-year-old, you know, what's going on in mommy's belly? She'll say, baby, right? Very common sense, okay? I mean, the youngest people in our world today can look at what's going on in mom and say, there's a baby in there, right? She doesn't say, it's a blob of cells, right? She doesn't say, it's a fetus. No, it's a baby, right? So then all of a sudden we're thinking, okay, the 3-year-olds figured this one out. But then we get to your age, and what does society start telling you? Oh, it's just a blob of cells. We got to brainwash ourselves out of it's just a baby, right? Because all of a sudden, it restricts us. We can't do what we want when we want to do it, how we want to do it, right? So in order to make abortion legal, we have to convince ourselves this is not a person, right? Now, we also know that humans don't have cats, they don't have dogs, they don't have carrots, they don't have elephants coming out of it. It is human. And we also know that that little blob of cells is growing and reproducing and metabolizing and developing every minute. And that's actually the definition of alive. If you open up Webster's dictionary, what does alive mean? You know, in the world of biology, it means you have cells that are reproducing, metabolizing, growing, developing. Guess what? Whatever's in there is alive, and it's human, right? But again, personhood is what the law talks about here. It hasn't established personhood. Now we look at history. Anytime the personhood issue ever comes up through history, we've always made a body of people not persons so we can do horrendous things to them, okay? One example. We used to have in this country slavery, right? The Dred Scott decision from our Supreme Court in 1853 said that African Americans were not people. They were essentially like livestock, and therefore slavery was legalized, or continued to be legal at the time, right? Hitler said the Jews are not people, okay? We can therefore justify, you know, the Holocaust, 6 million, okay? This is very, very similar argument. Never in history have we had alive human beings declassified as persons when we've been right, okay? Ever. So personhood is the argument. And the question is, well, when does that begin? When does personhood begin? I'm saying it certainly can't be once you pass through the entirety of the birth canal. That doesn't make any sense. What's the invisible force field down there that would make this child a person in 1 second and not the second before? That doesn't make logical sense, okay? So we have in our country inalienable rights. What's an inalienable right?
Their life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right. Those are inalienable rights because what do you have to do to earn them?
Be a person.
Be a person, right? That's exactly right. All you have to do is exist. Why? Because we decided that we cherish human beings. And we think all human beings, because of the fact that we appreciate human dignity, human life, that all persons should have rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? But you know that's a strange order. Why? Why is life first? Why is the pursuit of happiness not first on the list and life is third? Because you can't pursue happiness if you're dead. Okay? So you are aspiring to have life first, because all your other rights don't matter if you're dead, right? So now think about this in logical order, and this is the reason why the laws in this country are kind of built this way. If you have someone who wants to pursue happiness, I want to go rob a bank, okay? And in doing that, I'm going to go kill that guy. Well, your right to pursue happiness does not supersede the right of the guy to have his life, right? If you want to pursue happiness, and that means I'm going to enslave this person because I want the right to be happy. No, that doesn't work. This guy has the right to live and not be enslaved before your happiness is taken care of, right? Those are put in a specific order for a reason, all right? Now, that's, again, think about it. So, what's ironic about this whole issue is abortion is legal if a mother wants to believe her child is not a person, okay? Now, let me ask you a question. If I look at this chair and I say, I don't want it to be a chair, I don't want it to be a chair, I don't want it to be a chair, does it cease to be a chair? No. If you were to go outside and you look at a tree and you say, I don't want it to be a tree, I don't want it to be a tree, does it stop being a tree? Okay. If you have an unborn baby and you say, I don't want it to be a baby, I don't want it to be a baby, does it cease to be a baby, logically? Okay. Another thought. Ironically, if the mother wants her baby and she's murdered, the murderer in our country gets 2 counts of murder. Did you guys know that? So, the murder in our country, if you murder a pregnant woman, 2 counts. The same woman could say, I don't want my baby, and have an abortion, and that's subsidized. I mean, we pay for it. Think about that. All right?
I mean, it doesn't matter how far along she is if the woman's murdered.
Correct. Okay? Now, this is when we start talking about development. Okay? People say, well, it's not developed yet. It's just that blob of cells, right? That people say, it's only this big, right? So my question is this. Are you developing right now?
Yep.
True.
I know I am.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Right now, women are getting parts they never had before in their life.
No.
Guys are getting hair they never had before.
No, I'm just like, I'm growing taller.
You're growing taller. But I can tell you, okay, I have children. They go like this. Boom, 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 boom. I have a 2-month-old right now who weighed about 7 pounds at delivery, who today, in 2 months, weighs 14 pounds. In 2 months, this kid has doubled his size, okay? Doubled. He's clearly still developing, right? You are not developed yet. You're going to keep developing, and we're all developing. That child in the womb, guess what? Is developing, right? It's developing. There is no, it's not like they pass through that invisible force field and all of a sudden are developed. No, they just continue to develop. The development didn't matter, right? Where they are. So people say, well, it's really small. I got to tell you something. We were all really small. Everyone in this room. That was where we were supposed to be at our point of development at that moment. Did it mean you are not a person? Is my infant not a person yet? Because he doesn't look like he's 4? Or because he doesn't look like he's 13? Or because he doesn't look like he's 25?
Or because he hasn't graduated.
Whatever. Is the unborn child not a person because they haven't hit some benchmark of development? Now, our laws, we'll talk about the laws in a minute, but our laws generally say, let's make it first trimester. You can have an abortion. Everyone under the first trimester can have an abortion because the baby's not developed yet, right? Well, my question is this. What happened at that first trimester that all of a sudden defined personhood? What happened 2 seconds before that? Nothing. What happened 2 seconds before that? Nothing. Logically speaking, you go 2 seconds back, guess what you end up with? Conception, right? First cell. Doesn't happen before that conception. That's why the church says life begins at conception. Not at the first trimester, not at the second trimester, not at the third trimester. conception. Because you can't say, just drawing that line is so arbitrary and so ridiculous, it doesn't make logical sense to do that, okay? We are all still developing, major point. That's what most pro-abort people want to say when they have discussions. You bring that up, they're like, they never really thought about it, right? All right, so, now, this actually came up in a lot of your questions. What if this child is born into a horrendous environmental situation? Like, the parents are child abusers, the child's being born into poverty, the mom's a crack addict. You pick your reason of horrendousness, okay? Now, my question is this. If the principle is that child, we're being compassionate and eliminating that child before they're in this horrible situation, then if that's the principle, why are we not compassionate and going and killing everyone in the same situation today, out of the womb? If killing poor people killing a child being born into a poor environment is compassion, why wouldn't we kill a born child in a poor environment? If the child is one who's going to be born into a child abusive environment, why don't we kill all the children who are being child abused? Why don't we solve child abuse by killing all the children? The logic in that one is unbelievable, but it's what people use, right? I mean, that every reason you can think to kill this child in the womb, have the child be 5 years old and say, can I kill him now for the same reason? If you can't kill the 5-year-old, you cannot kill the child in the womb. The principle is the same. Whatever justifiable reason you can use to kill that child in utero has to be the same justifiable reason you can kill that child out of the womb. And if they don't match, you can't do it in the womb. Right? Does everyone understand that? All right.
Yes.
All right, good. So, what's also kind of funny is, my wife was pregnant, right? We have a 2-month-old. I cannot tell you how many good people come to us and they say, oh, we're so happy you're pregnant as long as the baby's healthy. And I look at them kind of like, well, what if the child's not? Let me ask you a question. Is health a guarantee? Baby can be born. We could be driving home from the hospital, get in a car accident. Now I have a paraplegic, quadriplegic, cerebral palsy. Is health a guarantee? My kids all just got RSV. I mean, they were, you'd think they were drowning to death, okay? There is no guarantee for health. So let's say my child gets in that car accident. My 9-year-old, right, gets in a car accident tomorrow. He is a quadriplegic for the rest of his life. Would I abort him then? My 9-year-old? No. Principle, same principle. There are a lot of abort. Well, we'll get to that in a second. And it has to do with handicaps, okay? We'll get to that in a second. We also, in this country, again, people very much confuse the fact that it's legal, therefore makes it moral, okay? We all kind of think our law, we come from a good country, our laws are generally good. I would agree with that. But it is a grave error to think that if something is legal, it's therefore moral, okay? Let me ask you a question. If we just made rape tomorrow legal, right, is it moral? No. If we made rape illegal tomorrow, would some people still rape anyway? Yes. Right? But the law is still required. We still have a law. Okay? When people say, well, if we outlaw, ban abortion tomorrow, women are going to just have them anyway. Yeah, that's surprising. We have people breaking the law every day. Right? So that's still not running with it. All right? Now, we get to good old topics, rape and incest. All right? Now this is like, all right, you're talking to a pro-abort person. Usually you won't even get to this point. I mean, because they're scared to death of someone who's actually sensible with the topic. And they don't know what to do, okay? So, we get to rape and incest. That is the reflex discussion, okay? Because I want to pick the absolute worst case scenario. When we talk about abortion, do not let it get in your brain that abortion is legal for rape and incest, and that's what people do it for, okay? Rape and incest is about 1% of abortions done, and of the 1%, they're not all rape and incest. A lot of that rape and incest are young ladies who said, I was raped, so the parents don't kill them when they come home. Now, there are those who have been raped, so let's take that scenario, okay? And she's now pregnant. She didn't want to be pregnant, right? Let me ask you a question. Same principles apply. If that child in utero is standing here looking at us, can we abort the child? Even if that child was the product of a rape, can we abort that child standing here?
Not according to U.S. law.
Not according to the U.S. law. Okay?
It's considered murder.
It would be considered murder. So you can't kill this child who's standing here. Why would the principle be okay to kill that child in utero? And now here's the answer, again, compassion, right? This poor woman just went through a pretty big ordeal. However, you must understand, every study done about this, every study says the woman, even in rape, who does an abortion still suffers from post-abortion syndrome, still has regret about that abortion, still thinks of herself all of a sudden, because once this is done, your maternal instinct doesn't shut off. You think to yourself, I was violated, right? But in this rape, I became a murderer. I killed part of my own blood. And it's actually being controlled again, right? Because it's not something this woman would normally do, usually, right? So they found that women who say, I'm not going to let this raper abuse me twice, okay, and actually have this child come out invincibly stronger in every category, character, etc. They become stronger people. They become stronger women. They defeated the rapist. He didn't control her that time, right? And by the way, well, we're going to talk about it, that child will be found and loved by, there's so many families we came to talk about who are looking for kids.
2 million, I think.
We're up there. We're going to get to that.
That's how many
Are still looking for kids.
Yep.
Now we talk about medical reasons. Yes.
I mean, what if it was like what if it was someone in your family, like one of your children?
Yep.
Or if it was someone like your kid that got it?
Yep. Same principles. Every action you think about doing on a day-to-day basis in regards to morality is based on principles. Your Catholic faith is valuable because it instills in us principles we can apply to every situation. This principle, I'm not saying this because I'm a cold-hearted guy, I'm saying this as if my daughter was raped tomorrow and got pregnant, we're having a baby, okay? And it is not the child's fault it's there, okay? And so that same principle applies. If my wife got raped tomorrow and was pregnant, guess what? We're having a baby, okay? Again, the child did nothing. The child did nothing. So, to me, it is a violation that lasts 9 months because she is going to go through a process there of pregnancy and birth. But, again, the child has done nothing. As I said, that woman, at the end of the day, will come out stronger for the situation if she can allow that. Yes?
I have a question. Does the Catholic Church in America, do we provide, I know birthright, do we provide places where people who have aborted or
Yes.
have kept their child or have chosen life?
Yes?
Even if the child, do we have,
Well,
therapists for them?
absolutely. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? So catch up with me. With the questions, let me finish, and then we're going to go through a lot of questions so we can because half the stuff I'm about to say is probably stuff you're asking yourself. So, medical reasons, okay? Let's talk about medical reasons. Is the child's life worth more than the mother's life? Anyone?
No.
No. Absolutely right. Okay, good. The Catholic Church, as pro-life as it gets. Me, as pro-life as I get, understand the reality that the child is not worth more than the mother. They're both life, right? So when you talk about I'm actually in the medical field. I face this a lot. I wouldn't say a lot. You get scenarios. I just had a woman, for instance, who I looked in her mouth and I see a tumor, and she's pregnant, right? What do I do about that tumor? You know what most doctors would say? Abort the child, fix your tumor, right? Most would say that. That's actually the recommendation if you were to pick up the books and open them. The recommendation is abort the child, heal the cancer. Why? In trying to heal the cancer, the child might become handicapped. Okay? This goes with breast cancer, for instance. All the chemotherapy drugs are highly toxic to an unborn child, right? So the question here is, if this mother is ill, do we neglect her care, or do we treat her, or what do we do? And the answer there is you treat both patients involved here, okay? The child might be handicapped. It's the same thing as we might get in a car accident today and have a problem, right? You still drive. The mom, she needs chemo. You have to give her the chemo. And we roll with the punches, right? Even if that child is going to have some kind of a defect or a handicap, so what? We roll with punches, right? If there are certain situations where the mom's health can deteriorate quickly from like high blood pressure or issues of that nature in pregnancy called eclampsia, and in that case, you can deliver the child early and at least do your best to save that child. The youngest child that I know of born is 19 weeks. 19 weeks. Abortion's legal to 24 in every state without any question. Okay? So the youngest baby born is 19 weeks. Now, another question is this cancer, where is it going to go? You don't have to act on the cancer immediately, right? Again, you're treating two patients. Sometimes, if there's a life thought here, it's, why don't we watch this cancer and see what it does? And you're still pregnant, and we're going to go as long as we can until the cancer wants to do something, right? And then we treat that and deliver the baby at the same time, okay? There's so many options to play with, but the concept there is, what's your intention? Your intention is you have two patients, and they're both important. Their lives are equally important. And you roll with the punches. Even if the odds of survival for that kid is low. Let's say there was an avalanche, you're skiing, and there was an avalanche, and the snow comes down, and it wipes out skiers. You say, well, that guy's screwed. I'm having lunch. No, you go up and start digging, even though the chance of getting that guy out of the snow is low, right? Well, this unborn child is in the avalanche. We still try to save that unborn child, even though the odds of rescue may be low. Do everything we can, right? So that's how you deal with medical problems. The one medical problem out there that will end up with the child being dead every time is an ectopic pregnancy, okay? An ectopic pregnancy is when the embryo gets stuck in the fallopian tube, is the most common place. And at that point, if that fallopian tube, the diseased fallopian tube, is not removed, both mother and child die. Okay? Catholic Church would say it's okay to remove the diseased portion of the tube. Yes, indirectly the child dies, but that's not the intention there. And the Catholic Church would even say that's okay. Okay? Because again, your objective there isn't, I want to kill that child. It's, we got to remove this diseased portion of the tube, and the mom's going to die, and by the way, the child's going to die. There's no option there. Okay? But that's, that is the only reason medically that the Catholic Church would generally deal with this stuff. Okay? You got to be careful with what your politicians are talking about. The most pro-choice politicians will say, but it's for the health of the mother. They won't say life. What does the court define as health? Health is financial health, psychological health, emotional health. So the mother, abortion is legal till birth in every state of this union if the mother has depression and decides in the 9th month she wants to have an abortion. It's legal. That's why partial birth abortion occurs, right? So partial birth is the baby's so big, they have to literally deliver this child where all the parts are out there moving around. But again, as long as any part hasn't made it through the invisible force field, you can do whatever you want. The child's not a person yet, so the doctor gets a scissor, stabs the baby in the back of the head, opens up the scissor, sucks that child's brain out as it's, still alive, and delivers a dead child. Okay? That's legal. Have we lost our minds here?
Yes.
Okay?
Seriously.
That is what that issue is about. And it's, as I said, the problem is the pro-abort people say, well, if we make that illegal, that procedure, they understand all of a sudden the invisible force field no longer applies, right? Because all of a sudden they have to make a new force field, and they don't know what that could be. It's arbitrary. So they have to make that legal to make abortion still legal, right? I mean, that's their logical sense there. All right? Some people say, well, it's a privacy issue. It's the mother's body. It's her body and she's private with it. Well, in the privacy of her home, if she's stabbing the children in the back of the head with a scissor, or pouring on acid so their skin melts off, or putting their children in a blender or a microwave, would we say we're going to invade the privacy of her home for that child's sake?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Even in the privacy of our body, you have a second body here, right? You have a second whole set of genes, a second whole life. Privacy is a good thing, but every law we have invades our privacy, okay? So, you can still invade privacy, quote unquote, to save life. I mean, that's again, it's pretty straightforward. What does all this mean? Well, I mean, think about it. How many abortions are actually done? Today, more kids were aborted than 9/11. The whole disaster at 9/11. You guys remember 9/11? You guys are probably little wee tots. But 9/11, about 3,500 people died. Today, over 4,000 kids died in abortion. That's remarkable. We have more kids dying in abortion every year in this country than the death toll of every war America's ever fought in, combined. Okay? You're talking about 50 million and counting abortions done since it was legalized in the early 70s. 50 million. That's New York City has 8. The Holocaust was 6. Okay? 50 million. It's incredible. You have nearly 1 in 3 pregnant women having an abortion today. Okay? Nearly 1 in 3. Now, why is this? Why are we doing this? How is this still legal? How is this happening? Right? Well, 1, because of the number of abortions that has happened, guess what? That means 50 million moms have had them. That means 50 million boyfriends or husbands drove them there, paid for it, or supported them in that. That means 50 million other people either tried to make it legal or helped them along or paid for it or whatever. To be able to make something, to go from something where we all of a sudden recognize life is it's a long jump, because all of a sudden you have so many people involved. It takes so many people to get self-awareness and say, I made a mistake, a huge mistake, that it's very hard to go backwards at this point. But we must. It's like, let's say you're a German guard in a Holocaust camp, right? It's very hard for you to go from the mindset of, this isn't a person I'm going to gas him, this isn't a person I'm going to shoot him, this isn't a person I'm going to do whatever, to, whoa, they are people, and now I have to admit it, who is that guy? So there's so many people involved, it's very hard for people will defend that action till the end, because they can't conceive of themselves, a good person, as doing something this atrocious, right? You got to realize those women having abortions are not evil, okay? You have to also understand that very plain reality. And I got to tell you, most people on the pro-choice side, again, think they're being compassionate. They think they're doing the right thing. The woman having the abortion is usually, I would say they usually know it's wrong, but they have reasons. But we all justify why we do horrendous things in our lives. We're all sinners, okay? We have to realize that and look at these women with compassion. Now, if 1/3 of women have had abortions, that means there's some people in this room that maybe even had one. Okay? There may be some guys here who have, hushed it up and drove them there and supported them and helped them and was compassionate for them. That doesn't mean you're gone, man. Welcome to the club. Okay? We have all done that to Jesus Christ. Some people, that's an abortion. Some people, it's sexual, ease. Some people, that's murder. Some people, that's adultery. Some people, that's not attending Mass. Some people, that's being rude or crude or whatever. We have all driven those nails through his hands. This is not a witch hunt. Okay? We've all been there. We've all done that. But we can't stand by and say, this sin can exist as an action in our country. We have to separate judgment of the soul and judgment of the act. Right? We've really confused those two words in our time. We have very good, strong, holy Catholic people saying, I can't say anything because I don't want to judge them. Well, judging them means, I think you're going to hell. That's what Christ is talking about with judgment. As a Catholic, we not only have the right, but we have the absolute responsibility to stand up and judge an action as good or evil, based on the perfect example, Jesus Christ. We can do that. We have that authority. We don't have to walk around with some vague, abstract thought about truth. We have the truth, the way, the life. And so when we're talking to others about this, talk with authority. You know what you're talking about. Okay? I mean, Jesus is the example. And ultimately, as I said, we are all on that road of repentance. So if you've had an abortion, there are groups. There's Rachel's organization that are women who've all had abortions that are coming out and talking about it. You have to realize, in Roe v. Wade, okay, she actually became a Christian and is now she's a pro-life activist. The one who started the whole shebang, okay, is now a pro-life activist. Why? Because she was walking around a young lady one day who was nearly aborted and said, what if that child had been aborted? And she was such a major point in her life, she thought to herself, wait a second, this doesn't add up. I was used by this movement, right? So there is hope. I mean, God bless the cross, because without it, we're all in big trouble, okay? There are homes. I am the director of the Good Counsel home in Poughkeepsie, okay? Good Counsel is a home for women who are in a dire strait, who feel like they're alone, who ultimately are able to come to this house for free, live for a year. Food, clothing. They have a minimum requirement that they either have to be getting educated while they're there, or they have to be working and saving a nest egg, so when they come out, they have a place to start. Okay? And we have that home in Poughkeepsie. There's 5 others locally, around this New York, lower New York, New Jersey, and there might be one in Connecticut. But there are places to go for women in need. Okay? When we talk about what can we do as a group, right? We talk about what can we do. Well, one is vote. You're almost there, okay? I hate taxes. I hate them. I feel like I'm being robbed from on a near daily basis, okay? Hate it. Let's say my perfect politician said, I'm going to make you tax-free. I'm going to give you Social Security till you're 140. I'm going to do whatever my things are, gun control or whatever, and education, pick your topics. But at the end of his statement, he says, but I hope you don't mind, I'm going to be for killing 4,000 kids a day, 1.4 million kids a year. Does everything I have in the bucket here, with taxes and everything else, even remotely come close to this guy wanting to kill 1.4 million kids a year? Not in the same world, okay? It's not in the same hemisphere, When I'm voting, I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care. Are you pro-life? From that point, then I make all my little distinctions. But if they aren't pro-life, Does anything else really in the world of spirituality and life and so forth really matter? You know, that's one thing. Second thing is adoption. We could talk about adoption. There are thousands, 2 million families out there in this country alone looking to adopt a kid. Why? Why does abortion exist? Abortion exists because and this is a whole other talk, I'm just going to skip on it a little bit. We all are now built in a society where we really have adolescence until we're like 26, and then we get married, and then, you know, we have our careers first and all that, and then by the time we want kids, we're like in our 30s, okay? I gotta tell you something, you're not very fertile in your mid-30s and on, all right? So you have a whole bunch of people now who have lived their life with the career mode in their brain, okay? Career first, family third, or fourth, or fifth, or sixth on the line, okay? And as they go through this whole process, they just pretend they're married with people, right? We all see Seinfeld. They live with each other. They sleep with anything that breathes. And in that kind of lifestyle, well, guess what? People get pregnant. So abortion has to be okay so we can continue to do this kind of lifestyle because career comes first. And I come first. And everything other than family, community, God, that's way down the list, right? My money comes first. My power comes first. My self-esteem comes first, etc., right? So abortion, we legalize it, we allow it because of that reality, right?
And our senators and our representatives are
Well, you got
doing
to
that.
Well, but they represent us. We voted for
Yeah, we voted for them.
them, right? They're just reflecting society. If we were all pro-life, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing, right? They want to be elected, right? So adoption is, you know, all these women now are who had the 3 abortions now want kids, and they're 34 years old, and all of a sudden they find out they are not able to have kids very easily. And you have a massive group of people now flying to Russia, Mongolia, Vietnam, whatever, to adopt kids. Because why? Where are the kids? They're not here. Go to the Yellow Pages and look up orphanage. Find a Yellow Pages in the United States that says orphanage. I've looked. They're not there. Now, there are kids who we can foster, you know, those kinds of situations. There are other kids who might be able to be adopted in this country, but there's certainly not a surplus of them. That's why people are spending $20,000 to go to Russia to adopt. You know, like, there is no kids here, right? Meanwhile, down the street, the girl's having abortion, 4,000 of them a day. Nothing's adding up, nothing. So adoption is a very viable option. And finally, we got to pray. And we got to pray. And after that, we got to pray more, because this is really about, you know, it is about the culture of life and culture of death issues that Mother Teresa talked about. You know, we have a culture of death because, again, we've lost the whole sense of family, community, family commitment. I mean, again, we're looking to ourselves first in everything, called the religion of individualism, right? It's the religion where I'm God. I'm going to do what I want, when I want, how I want, because I'm me. Right? And it's not that foreign. Guess what? Adam and Eve. If you eat that apple, you can be like gods and know what's right and wrong for you. Right? That's what they wanted to do. So, you know, that's that. Let me tell you a brief story and then we'll get to your questions. I'm going to pass this around. Cute girl. She could be sitting in any of these chairs right now. All right, this is not 6 months old. Her name's Caitlin. She is an all-star. She lives in Huntington Beach, California. She likes to surf. She has a dog. Everyone likes her. Popular kid. She's really good with other people. She talks to kids in the class. She makes people feel welcome. She is the absolute center, almost, of her parents' life. And she is everything. I mean, she is a huge light. Okay? That young lady almost was aborted. Almost. Her mother was 16. What's the age of everyone here? 16. Okay. Your age. Pregnant. Okay? Her mom was told at the time, well, as long as you love the guy you're with, you know, it's okay. You can give yourself away. And so she did. And she did it with a boyfriend she had for a couple of years. It was the very first time, you know. very sweet, etc., etc. But all of a sudden, guess what? She's pregnant. Round 1, okay? All of a sudden, what to do now, right? Well, she goes to the boyfriend. Boyfriend, right? We're pregnant. He says, what? And she goes, and she went and talked to his parents. They said, well, it's not ours. No, you must be mistaken. No, we don't want to know anything about it. Don't even tell us. Right? Upstanding Christian family. All right? But they didn't want to know. They totally abandoned her. You take care of it. We don't want to know. We don't want him to be a baby. Right? What now? She's kind of from a rough environment, so she doesn't really know how to deal with this. But, she thought to herself for a moment, she goes to the doctor. The doctor says, you can have an abortion. This will all go away. Right? She's thinking to herself, I want to go to college. I want to be a doctor. I want to, X, Y, and Z. The problem's coming, All she has to do is have an abortion. It's at that moment of her absolute most aloneness that she prayed and she was kissed by the Lord. And she thought to herself, if I have an abortion, they might not know, but I know. God knows. And my life is a long time. And it's at that moment she said, regardless of the consequence, we're going to go through with this and have this child. She goes home and tells her mom. They call her dad who's on a business trip. Ultimately, the dad says, well, look, my brother's been looking to have a child for years. This might be an answer to his prayers, right? And all of a sudden he goes, well, let's bring her out here. She ends up having Caitlin, right? Now, this mother goes through this experience, and she has now character, right? She just grew into a woman, from a girl to a woman in this experience. Character, integrity, self-respect, self-esteem. She's a woman of God. She found God through this experience. And she was being built for her future husband. Right? So, ultimately, you got to realize it's not some little baby that's being born here. This is a young lady who's going to get married. She's going to have kids and grandkids and great-grandkids. And they're going to have kids and grandkids and great-grandkids. It's generations of goodness, of light, of life, because of that one moment. All right? So think about that.